Okay, so now we're going to look at a biblical passage on conflict resolution. So I think in the syllabus I mentioned, 1 Samuel 25, 1 to 43. So let's 1 Samuel 25, 1 to 43. Who is a fast reader, kind of has, because it's a long passage. So who would like to read this long passage and feels comfortable reading such a long?
Read it.
Okay, Peterson. So before you start, sorry, before you start. So as he's reading this.
What am I reading though?
I put it in the chat. 1 Samuel 25, 1 to 43.
Okay.
So yeah, as he's reading this, we are looking at the way that Abigail resolved the conflict that was at hand, right? Her technique. We're looking at her technique. So I'm gonna ask you to jot down elements of her technique that is indicated in the text, right? The text gives us some detail on purpose so that we can follow in her footsteps, so that we can gain the same skills she had naturally, right? She was naturally able to do this, but we can learn from her. So go ahead, Peterson.
Okay. 1 Samuel 25. Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him in his house at Ramah. Then David rose and went down to the wilderness of Paran, and there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. The man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. He was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife was Abigail. The woman was discerning and beautiful, but the man was harsh and badly behaved. He was a Calebite. David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, "Go up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. And thus you shall greet him. Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have. I hear that you have shearers. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we did them no harm, and they missed nothing all the time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore, let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever you have at hand to your servants and to your son David." When David's young men came, they said all this to Nabal in the name of David, and then they waited. And Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants these days who are breaking away from their masters. Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to men who come from I do not know where?" So David's young men turned away and came back and told him all this. And David said to his men, "Every man strap on his sword." And every man of them strapped on his sword. David also strapped on his sword, and about 400 men went up after David, while 200 remained with the baggage. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, "Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to greet our master, and he railed at them. Yet the men were very good to us, and we suffered no harm, and we did not miss anything when we were in the fields, as long as we went with them. They were a wall to us, but both by night and by day, all the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore, know this and consider what you should do, for harm is determined against our master and against all his house, and he is such a worthless man that one cannot speak to him." Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine and 5 sheep already prepared and 5 seahs of parched grain and 100 clusters of raisins, 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on donkeys. She said to her young men, "Go on before me. Behold, I come after you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. And as she rode on the donkey and came down under cover of the mountain, behold, David and his men came down toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, "Surely in vain have I guarded all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him, and he has returned me evil for good. God, do so to the enemies of David, and more also, if by morning I leave so much as one male of all who belong to him." When Abigail saw David, she hurried and got down from the donkey and fell before David on her face and bowed to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "On me alone, my lord, be the guilt. Please let your servant speak in your ears and hear the words of your servant. Let not my lord regard this worthless fellow, Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your servant, did not see the young men of my lord whom you sent. Now then, my lord, as the Lord lives, as your soul lives, because the Lord has restrained you from blood guilt and from saving with your own hand. Now then, let your enemies and those who seek to do evil to my Lord be as Nabal." And now let this present that your servant has brought to my lord be given to the young men who follow my lord. Please forgive the trespass of your servant, for the Lord will certainly make my lord a sure house, because my lord is fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil shall not be found in you so as long as you live. If men rise up to pursue you and to seek your life, the life of my lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living in the care of the Lord your God. And the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the hollow of a sling. And when the Lord has done to my lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you prince over Israel, my lord shall have no cause of grief or pangs of conscience for having shed blood without cause, or for my lord working salvation himself. And when the Lord has dealt well with my lord, then remember your servant. And David said to Abigail, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Blessed be your discretion, and blessed be you. You have kept me this day from blood guilt and from working salvation with my own hand. For as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has restrained me from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to meet me, truly by morning there had not been left to Nabal so much as one male. Then David received from her hand what she had brought him, and he said to her, Go up in peace to your house. See, I have obeyed your voice and have granted your petition. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he was holding a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until the morning light. In the morning, when the wine had gone out to Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord, who has avenged the insult I received at the hand of Nabal, and has kept back his servant from wrongdoing. The Lord has returned the evil of Nabal on his own head. Then David sent and spoke to Abigail to take her as his wife. When the servants of David came to Abigail at Carmel, they said to her, David has sent us to you to take you to him as his wife. And she rose and bowed with her face to the ground and said, Behold, your handmaid is a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my lord. And Abigail hurried and rose and mounted a donkey, and her 5 young women attended her. She followed the messengers of David and became his wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and both of them became his wives. Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Palti, the son of Laish, who was of Galim.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good. Very interesting story. Almost like a fairy tale, right? Cinderella story, kind of. So I'm going to listen to you now. What?
Happily ever after.
Yeah, exactly.
David and Abigail.
Exactly. Sounds like almost a fairy tale. It's true. Okay. Anybody have, what's some of the things you observed? I'm going to take note what you say. In her technique, let's look at the success, right? This horrible, right? David is known for his violence, right? We know he's not, he's somebody who killed so much, by the way, that God forbade him to build the temple, right? Remember, David was the one who wanted to build the temple for God, and God said, you have shed too much blood. You can't do this. Your son will do this, right? So David was an extremely violent man. And here he is coming towards her family with 400 men. He's extremely angry. What does she do? She manages to shift the whole situation, right? What are some of the things she does that create this shift in David? Okay, Apenteng, go ahead.
Okay, so from what we read, I noticed that Abigail did not only decide to go and see David, she also went with something, some kind of sacrifice. So she could have just gone to speak to him. It could have been just words, but she decided to appease him with something. She had said that this is for your men. This is for you and your men. So a sort of sometimes it's not always about just talking. You have to probably sacrifice as well, or appease the person, depending on the extent of the conflict at hand.
Okay, excellent, right? Before you can even start the conversation, there has to be something to create the atmosphere for good conversation, right? And we'll talk about this notion of sacrifice. Excellent. I like that. How? Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. She gives this prophecy, basically, kind of starting in verse 29 on through 31. At this time, David was basically an outcast, like the leader of a group of people who'd all been in trouble with the law. David was a nobody. I mean, I disagree that this is a fairy tale. She was with a man who lived like a king, and now she's going to live with some robber. Don't forget, just a little bit after this, she goes and gets kidnapped and has all kinds of problems. So anyway, she gives this prophecy and basically says, David, you will be king if you keep following this righteous way of not shedding the wrong blood, basically. So she gives this prophecy in kind of a nice way, but if you read it closely, it kind of looks like it's contingent. She front loads it with, don't put yourself in a position of being guilty of blood, and then you will be king. So it is a very interesting little thing. And then, just a small detail to kind of highlight how carefully she thought about this. She talks about enemies being a sling. You've shot out like a rock from a sling. This is the guy that killed Goliath with his sling. He knows all about slings. This is what brought him to power. This was the action that got him married to Saul's daughter in the first place. So, we could pick out other things, but every detail that she uses is really crafted to appeal to David based on his history.
Nice analysis. Can you elaborate on the sling? I don't have the passage in front of me, so can you read a little bit what the sling here is saying? I'm curious.
Yeah, so she says, basically, yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life. This is Saul, right? But the life of my Lord shall be as a bundle in the bundle of the living God, and the lives of your enemies, he, that is God, will sling out as from the pocket of a sling.
Wow.
So she's saying that God will bring this justice for you, even though Saul is chasing you now. And by the way, it's a true prophecy. I mean, not that Saul was literally slung out, but God handled all this in his own time. So she's kind of saying, right after her apology in verses 27, 28, she's saying, God's got you if you keep following his way, basically.
Yeah.
So,
very nice.
interesting.
Very good. Excellent. You guys are getting a lot. Okay, let's see a couple more. So, Sophia, Shumko.
She said a lot of interesting things that praised David and called to his conscience, like don't act out of anger, kind of thing. But the thing she said about her husband, no wonder his heart went cold inside. She literally just told him, he's a fool, this is his name. So that's pretty disrespectful to your husband. Yes, he's known to be like the way he is. We read at the start that he is, it was very descriptive here. And they're the opposites of each other. So he was mean-spirited and bad-tempered and an embarrassment to his tribe. He's your husband. Saying that kind of thing to someone behind your husband's back, I'm not sure I really agree with that, because I guess at that time you don't really get to choose who you marry. But once you made your decision, if you think bad about him, I wouldn't go and talk to people. I would talk to him about it. So I just wanted to point this part out. The thing she said is really not nice, and I don't know if this is something I mean, I don't know how it was perceived back then, but no wonder David wanted to marry her after everything she said.
Very good. Yeah, we're seeing, right, a very, well, first of all, you know, her whole life is in danger, so she'll say anything, although some of what she's saying is actually pretty good. Yeah, we'll talk about this Nabal and why she throws him under the bus and what lesson we can get from that, right? We don't need to take it literally, but there is some lesson there too, actually, with the way that she talks about Nabal. We'll look at that. So let's see, there's a few more. Kayumba and then Cole. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I also had a challenge with this scripture because the scripture said, in my Kenyawanda scripture, the Bible said that Abigail was beautiful and wise woman. But as Sophia said, I was confused when he starts saying that his husband is full. So, and I was wondering, can you hear me? Yeah, and I was wondering how the wise woman can really choose to marry the fool man or stupid man. So it confused me. So I said, what was the problem here? The Bible is trying to make us think more, or is just like a philosophy? Let me say like that. Yeah, it's not that clear how the wise woman and the beautiful woman can decide to go for a fool man.
Yes, it's a tragic story. So again, when you ask me questions, you have to ask me questions that are in the text, the reason in the text. Like one of you asked me what language they were speaking at Babel. How am I supposed to know? So I'm not, you know, a prophet who can, but like I think Shumko said something interesting, that marriages often were arranged. So it's possible that she didn't have a say in the matter, right? So we don't know. The text doesn't say anything. So there's nothing really I can say to help you figure out how a wise woman married a fool. So let's, yeah, Shumko is saying, right, that maybe the marriage was arranged. So that could be the case. Although, to be honest, in the biblical context, the woman often is given a choice, right? So we don't know, there's no indication in the text, right, that we have to help answer your question, sadly. Cole, would you like to add?
In verse 18, it says, then Abigail made haste and took blah blah. So I think that shows who Abigail is. And in every conflict resolution, time is very important. And Abigail is very decisive. She knows what to do. But it brings me to a point that, you know, when you are married, there are things which you have to leave for some time, like disagreements. Let it cool down. I don't know how that will, you know, with timing, and let's resolve it now, then okay, let's sleep it for some time.
Yeah, she does both, right? With David, she moves immediately, but with Nabal, she waits until the morning, right? So she has a good sense of timing. You're right. Let's focus on David and Abigail, because this is the conflict we're talking about. So the observations on the relationship between Abigail and Nabal are not helping us in our conflict resolution. Anything else? Apenteng, go ahead.
So another thing I noticed was when Abigail took a decision to go see David, she did not tell her husband anything. So initially, she did not mention anything to him. And then later, when she came back, actually, she even found him not in the best state. So she also did not say anything till the following morning when he was much more calm and sober. So I think I would want to still use the word timing here in terms of when you decide to talk back or when you decide to speak. matters a lot. So for instance, if you're having an argument with your partner and you realize he's probably acting a certain way because of some situation at work or something, if it means you have to keep quiet at that time, you keep quiet. Or when you feel maybe he's back with problems from work and there's no need to bring up a topic, you don't bring it. So I liked her timing, because when she was going, it seemed like it was just around the time that Nabal had misbehaved and was probably not in a good mood. So she said nothing. She went to see David, appeased them. She came back. She still didn't find it the right time to speak to him till the following morning. So I think that is also very essential.
Yes, very good. Again, right? Her sense of timing, when to hurry, when to slow down, right? Very good. She's very much attuned to where the other is, right? She's not just blurting things out. She's waiting for the right moment, creating the right moment, right? As she did with David. How, you have a little more things you want to talk about, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I mean, David was only out to kill the men. And the literal translation is like, he's killing the guys, you know, who are equipped as men, basically, whoever's peeing against a wall. So he went out to kill the ladies, and she just goes and takes all the blame for herself. He's not going to kill her. That wasn't his objective. So suddenly he hadn't have a target. And then, just in case he's still thinking, she's like, oh, well, you know, Nabal is this idiot. Everyone knows he's an idiot. He's just a fool. He's such a stupid person, such that David would be really lowering himself by killing such a person. Right. You know, I mean, it's very unethical to kill someone who's just like handicapped somehow. And here's David, this mighty warrior. Would he go and kill someone who's just an idiot? No, David's like the giant killer. He tackles worthy opponents. But for him to go and kill someone who's the village idiot, I mean, that it would just look so bad for David. So she puts him in a corner twice, just in that opening.
Excellent. I love it. Very good. Let's see, Cole, you have something about the choice of words. Go ahead. What choice did she make?
Apart from Abigail knowing how to pace, like the timing, she knows what words to use. And I think Paul knows this very much because he's a lawyer. And when you are a lawyer, you know what words to use. And that is very important during negotiation, you know, timing and words, what to use. Because one simple word, which is not, which has a bad taste to the other party, could mean violence.
Yeah, excellent. So I see some of you wanting to deal with the conflict between Abigail and Nabal. We will do something in that direction with Esther, because the king that Esther is married to is a kind of Nabal, right? So David is an easier adversary to work with. David is actually more open, right? But somebody like Nabal or I forget, Belshazzar, I think was the king during Esther. So in the bonus class, we'll deal with that type of man, the type of man you cannot talk to, right? David, you can still talk to him if you use the right word, right? But somebody like King Belshazzar or Nabal, so we will be dealing with a similar conflict when we do the bonus. So don't worry about Nabal. We will find him again in Belshazzar. Kolaria, go ahead. You have something to say.
Yes, I have something to say about the name. Okay, the name of Nabal, because I want to tell, of course, you know, but the names in the Bible are represent the characters. So I don't think it's necessary for Abigail to explain David how full Nabal is, because the name of Nabal has the characteristics that he has. She, with wisdom, bring this conflict low with her wisdom, because everyone knows about Nabal is the way how she tried to solve this conflict.
Yeah, very good, excellent. Okay, let's go there. Let's go. I have 3 things that she does, right, that are fundamental when you're trying to resolve a conflict. Number 1, she bears gifts. One of you mentioned that already, right? Number 2, she bows down. None of you noticed that. Number 3, she prophesies good. Okay, let's go into each one of them. So number 1, to bear gifts. So I'm going to kind of, look at I'm going to interpret what lesson can I draw from this particular moment? What can I learn from her attitude, right? And the first thing that I learned from this idea of bearing gifts, right? In addition to what, trying to find your name. I really have a hard time. Apenteng, right? In addition to what Apenteng said, which is, kind of appease the person, try to appease the person or find the right time, right? This is also very important. But I riffed a little bit on it. And I realized that the first thing you have to do before you deal with a conflict, right? What I'm learning from this passage is that you first have to get you to a good place, to a place of love, right? You cannot come into a conflict situation with hatred in your heart or resentment or anger, right? You have to come bearing gifts, right? You have to come with your heart open, basically, right? That's what for me means the bearing gifts. She comes with an open heart. She comes in love. She doesn't come in anger. One of the main problems, one of the main obstacles to resolving a conflict is not doing the prior work on yourself. You come to the conflict all messed up, right? Before you can confront anyone, and we see this with Esther also, there is a personal work that needs to take place where you, in a way, find yourself back into a place of love. Any conflict, and think of your conflicts with your spouse, with your children, with coworkers, always before you address it, you have to bring yourself to a certain state, right? Which is a state of love. For this, you will need the tool of forgiveness. And I want to talk a little bit about forgiveness because, when there's a conflict, usually somebody hurts me in some way. That's why there's a conflict, right? So if you're going to come to the person from a place of love, you have to heal your heart from the pain that has been inflicted on you. This, for me, is the purpose of forgiveness. So let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about what is forgiveness, because you will need to do this inner work before you even enter the room to talk to the person, right? So I want to go into forgiveness from the Hebrew perspective, because it is really a Hebrew concept. Even before it was a Christian concept, it was in the Hebrew Bible. Forgiveness in the Hebrew is the word nasa. Okay, I'm writing it down here in the chat. Nasa. Nasa literally means to carry. Okay, it doesn't mean anything, just to carry. So to forgive is to carry. What does this mean? Right? What does it mean that to forgive is to carry? Well, very simply this. What is the normal reaction when someone hurts you? Tell me, what is the normal human reaction? Someone hits you, what do you do?
Hit him back.
Thank you. There we go. Right? We have fight back. Someone hits you, I'm gonna hit you harder, right? Or if we don't fight back, we fight internally. Now we hated the person. Now we have resentment to the person. Now we are full of toxicity, right? We are toxic. So to carry is basically the opposite action. Instead of reflecting back at the person what they did, whether physically or verbally or internally, I hate you now, I'm never going to talk to you again, I'm never going to love again, right? Instead of reflecting back, you carry. In other words, you do not allow yourself to react. You do not allow yourself to be contaminated by what they did to you. Yeah, you did this to me, doesn't mean I'm going to do it to you, right? You hurt me, but I don't want to allow that pain to make me into a hurtful person, into a resentful person, into an angry person, into a closed-hearted person. So to carry is to refuse to reflect back the pain. Okay, let me write this down. To forgive or to carry, right, is the refusal to reflect back the pain that they inflicted on you, right? And the reflect can take many forms, right? Reflect can take actions, right? Vengeful actions, right? Vengeful words, vengeful feelings, right? Negative feelings, right? In other words, you refuse, this is very important, to forgive is to refuse to allow the pain to make me a bad person. Is to refuse to allow the pain to become toxic, right? The real problem is not the pain. The problem is how you react to the pain. Are you seeing what I'm saying? Let me write it down, right? The real problem is not the pain. It is how you react to the pain, right? Are you allowing the pain to become toxic, to make you a bad person, a vengeful person, an angry person, a resentful person? And so to forgive is really a decision to protect yourself from the toxicity of reacting, right? It's not even about the other. For this, you don't even need the other to come and ask for forgiveness. You do it for yourself. I refuse to make this other person make me like them. I refuse to allow this pain to become toxic. I refuse to allow this pain to damage my heart. I refuse to allow this pain that they did to me to make me into a toxic person. Are you following what I'm saying? If you are, put your hand in, right? So the first person who benefits from forgiveness is you, right? Of course, the second person is ultimately the other, because you are in a way creating the conditions for starting over, right? You are creating love in your heart, right? At this moment now, you are, yes, you're hurt, but you're not damaged. You're still a loving person, right? And so now you can, there's still hope, right, for the relationship once you have achieved that state. Of course, the other can, you know, come closer or not, but you are opening up the possibility of a new beginning, right? Whether they take it or not, that's their problem, but you are giving them this possibility of a new beginning where your heart is still loving, right? So that's the first thing, right? Before you go into any conflict, there is a deep inner work that has to take place where you bring yourself from a place of anger and resentment back to a place of love. And the path, the key, is forgiveness in that sense, right? And for this, you don't even need the other person to repent. This is an inner work, right? Okay, any questions on this first thing you have to do before you can resolve any conflict, any issues or problems or questions with that issue? Okay, I can't see your name. Ubinesa and then Apenteng. Go ahead.
I think it is true, and I'm not sure, I don't know the verse in the Bible that says, or I don't know if it is in the Bible, that don't go to sleep with anger. When something happens, try to control it and don't react immediately, but try to forget it or try to forgive the person. Yeah, yeah, it is true.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you go to bed without resolving the issue during the night, the thing will become more and more toxic, right? Absolutely. You want to resolve quickly. Apenteng, go ahead.
Relating this to Abigail, do you think it was much easier for her to do this because she was sort of like the mediator here? She wasn't the one who was directly hurt. Do you think it was easier for her to act in that manner?
Yes, I see what you're saying. Absolutely, right? She's not the one who was directly harmed, right? So it was, of course, easier. I am improvising from the theme, right? I'm seeing that she's coming. I'm looking at her technique, right? Whether she, of course, it was probably easier for her to rush out and come in love, right? Because, but she had the element of fear, of course, right? So in a way, the offense would have given rise to fear. So she was able to overcome the fear. Most of us have to overcome the resentment, right? So yeah, when we talk about Esther, it's more direct, right? The pain is more direct. But you're right, here it might have been easier. I'm just looking at her technique and trying to apply it to my own conflicts, right? So her technique seems to be, I come bearing gifts, I come in love, right? Does that make sense? Okay, great. Who is this? Okay, Okay, so here we have Kolaria, be angry and do not sin. Yeah, I like very much this verse you're quoting, Kolaria, be angry and do not sin, because it's okay to have emotions, but when the emotions become toxic, this is the problem. It's okay to be hurt, it's okay to have pain, to be sad, to be angry, but when the anger turns to vengeance, when the anger turns to resentment, you are in the context of sin, or what I call toxicity, right? So that's a great verse, Kolaria, to illustrate what I'm saying. Thank you. Okay, any other comments on this? Shall we go to the next technique? Okay, next technique. She bows down. Let's look at that. Okay, she bows down and she says, and then she makes her, she speaks, right? She makes her request. So first of all, what I'm learning from that personally, right? The notion of bowing down is the ability in conflict to, in a way, relinquish the control over the outcome, right? To bow down is the opposite of to submit someone, to dominate, right? You have to bow, you have to dominate, and then you have to bow down, right? So to bow down is a gesture by which she's telling the other person, I refuse to dominate this argument, right? I am coming in vulnerability. Remember what that was very powerful, what I'm forgetting everybody's names. Where are you? How, right? How mentioned the power of vulnerability, right? When you come in vulnerability or humility, it is actually much more powerful than when you come raging into the room, right? So she knows this and she comes vulnerably. I bow down, I am nothing, I am helpless, I am powerless. I desire this, right? She and this is a good thing for women, right? We tend to repress our desires for the sake of the relationship. She expresses a whole lot of things, but because she came vulnerably, she is heard, right? Very often, and this is often the case in a relationship, especially between man and woman, the woman says something, but it's the tone of the voice which is not right. Right? So very often what the woman is saying is legitimate, but she has this tone. Same with the man, right? You can say, in a way, you can say anything to your spouse if the tone is right, right? If the tone is not right, no matter what you say, it's not going to work. So she knows to use the right tone. She's not coming angrily, dominating, like, you stupid idiot, how could you even think of doing that, and what a moron you are, and what a loser, right? No. Instead of dominating, she comes in vulnerable. She's vulnerable. She's helpless. She comes in her full humanity, right? I do not know. I do not control, but I desire to live, right? Basically, that's what she's saying, right? But it's the tone of her voice. So very often when we make a request on someone, two things: the tone, coming with vulnerability, and number two, relinquishing control on the outcome, right? These are two lessons that I'm learning here, right? Coming in vulnerability and relinquishing control on the outcome. This is what it means to really express a desire in a way that will be heard. Very often when we express a desire, and I'm talking more to the women, right? We come with the wrong tone, or we want to make it happen. We want to force the situation. We give, we have expectations here. You need to do this because you're the husband. I expect you to do this, right? And what we're learning here is that the most beautiful expression of a desire, the one that will be heard, is coming vulnerably, humbly, and at the same time, then after you've said it, you pull back and you allow the person to respond in their own time and way. You don't try to control the outcome, right? You say what you have to say, and then you step back, right? So that's the second thing I'm learning from her beautiful gesture, right, of coming in vulnerability. I think if you come to your spouse in full vulnerability, like, honey, I don't know, I can't do this, I long for this, and I'm just telling you, and you do as you feel. I understand, that it's difficult for you, but I just wanted you to know that this is so important to me. And then you shut up. Very powerful, right? Any questions on this second one? And again, I love what Hao said about the power of vulnerability, right? This is what we're seeing here. She bows down, but it's a very powerful gesture, right? Uwinesa, do you have a hand up and a painting? Is this recent? Okay, Uwinesa, go ahead, Uwinesa.
Okay, yeah, we are talking about this, and we are talking about relationship as husband and spouse. But sometimes you need to forgive, but don't forget, because if you stay, you keep forgiving, you will be abused. So you need to judge if really you need to stay in that relationship. Otherwise, you need to take a decision. I know I have some friends, they stayed with their husband maybe for 10 years or 15 years. They were abused, but they were always forgiving and bowing down. But it was not correct for such long time. So we need to see also the advice.
That's an excellent observation. That's why when we bow down, it is not to submit, it is to speak, right? Abigail in this verse is very expressive. She says what she needs, right? So there's two kinds of women, right? There's a woman who passive, doesn't ever say what she wants, kind of like your friends. Then there's the woman who is active and she knows what she wants, but she doesn't give it, she has to leave the relationship to get what she wants. This is the balance between I am here, I desire this, right? She bows down, but she never loses the vision of what she desires for the relationship. You see what she's doing. She's humble, she's vulnerable, but then she speaks. This is what I desire. And very often we don't realize, I think, that in difficult relationships, right? We bow down in order to speak up, right? Let me say that. That's a nice, we bow down in order to speak up, right? In other words, she doesn't bow down and stay silent and endure the situation. She bows down, she comes in humility in order to express what she desires as a woman in order to feel loved, to feel respected. Do you see what I'm saying? So many women don't speak. And this is the case with what you're saying, Uwinesa. Where are you? You disappeared. Oh, there you are, right? Abigail, she bows down in order to speak, right? So we have to be really aware that she is standing up for herself by bowing down. Right? Let me write that down. That's even better. She bows down in order to stand up for herself. This is really what she's doing, but she knows that she has to have a certain tone. She needs to come in complete humility and vulnerability if she's going to be heard. So the bowing down is the tone, but then there is the words that emerge out of that bowing down. Apente, go ahead.
Okay, so I think what I had to say was quite similar to what she had to say. I mean, more of what if that is being taken for granted? But I think we've sort of discussed it. So.
Okay, so we went over that. Yeah, absolutely. She's not the type of woman who bows down remaining silent and submissive. This is a very powerful woman right there, right? And so she simply speaks in humility, but she speaks, right? And so this brings us to the last point where she prophesies goods. I want to really emphasize that because it is very powerful, this ability to prophesy good in a relationship, right? This ability to see the good in the other person, right? Which I will call actually hope, right? Hope is the ability to see the good in another person and to prophesy about it and to say it, right? This, I think, is the most powerful moment of this shift that she's operating in David's heart, right? She is able to see the man that he really is, and she's able to prophesy the kind of future he will have. I really believe that we have a real power as human beings to bring out the good of the other through our words, right? To bring out, if we see the other a certain way, they begin to shift in that direction. There is a power of the hopeful attitude and hopeful words and hopeful thoughts, right, towards the other, where we share with them a vision of how things could be, of who they truly are, right? Imagine you are in a relationship with a really difficult person, and you are able to continuously see the good aspects of that person. There's a beautiful quote by a Buddhist monk called Thich Nhat Hanh. How many of you know this guy? Let me turn on the gallery view. Anybody know this Buddhist monk called Thich Nhat Hanh? Okay. So he says this, right? He says a lover or a spouse is like a plant or is like a seed. Everybody has good seeds and bad seeds within themselves. So the choice is yours. Do you want to water the bad seeds in the person, or do you want to water the good seeds, right? So when we are criticizing and complaining about a person, we are watering the bad seeds and they're becoming what we are saying. This is the power of the word, right? However, when we begin to praise the good in them, which is there, by the way, we're not imagining, right? Abigail was perceiving correctly. David is not the type of person to kill innocent people, right? So when we begin to perceive the good in the other person and to speak it, slowly, slowly that good begins to develop, right? It's not even speaking, just seeing it and believing it can have an impact. This is called having trust and faith in the other person, right? That they can be something else, that the relationship can go in another direction. There's a power of this type of prophesying, right? That we see here with Abigail. David immediately shifts, right? She has watered the good seeds. She has opened him up to his true self. And at that moment, the true self, we see it blossoming in front of our eyes, right? So this is the idea, is that the ability to prophesy good in the other person, the ability to continuously focus on the good and to bring it out is one of the most powerful transformative actions you can do, right, in a relationship. Everybody follow what I'm saying? Put that hand. Okay, any questions on this last one? This, in my view, is one of the most powerful tools to shift the dynamic of a relationship. If you're always criticizing, complaining, angry, the person's gonna stay that. We have, by the way, in the Hebrew, the word for word, right? Word is davar. And interestingly, davar means two things, right? It means word, but it also means event, fact, reality, right? So as though in the Hebrew language, when you speak, you create, right? Just like the divine word spoke and life came into being, we have the same power. What we speak becomes. Learn to speak to your other, right? Whether it's your child or your spouse or your coworker, learn to speak in a way that will create, that will awaken, that will nurture the good in them, right? Because our words and our thoughts have immense power. If you're always thinking negative thoughts about someone and speaking negative things, they will become that. However, if you start to think positive thoughts, they are better than this, they have that, and to think it and to discipline yourself to continuously think it and speak it, you will see the changes. It is guaranteed. It is the power of the word that we have been given, just like because we are in the image of God, right? Any questions on that or comments on that last point? Or objections or discomforts? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I think it is a very interesting story about the conflict resolution and conflict mitigation. And the woman, Abigail here, can we say she's the person who is trying to resolve the conflict? And if so, how come she was speaking too much?
Speaking too much? What do you mean?
Yeah, she was like the story now, like she was the one talking with David, trying to convince David, and in that way. And I think in the beginning you said that when you come to resolve the conflict, you need to allow the other person to talk. not yourself.
I see what you're saying, based on what we talked about before, right? Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
I think, so this is a different technique, right? There's a time to listen and there's a time to talk, right? So we talked about the time to listen, right? But now there is also a time to talk in the conflict, right? And so what we are learning with Abigail is the way that we can talk once we have listened, obviously. And she did listen. She heard what was happening. She saw David coming, right? So there was a moment where she realized what's happening, and she immediately saw the shame that was inflicted on David. She perceived the whole situation, right? So there was a moment where she was actually attentive, right? And then she realized now is the moment to talk. So absolutely, right? If we just listen, then there is no resolution. We have to at one point express also our point of view. And what Abigail is teaching us is the art of expressing that point of view in a way that the other will be the most receptive, right? That's the idea. Does that make sense, Yai? Where is Yai? Yai has disappeared. Yeah, am I making sense, Yai? Okay, great. Okay, Shumko, go ahead.
I think at the point when she met David, she already, it was already too late to talk because he was already in a place where he was acting. But she responded with an action because she sent the gifts first and she said, you go ahead of me and then I'll follow. So she met action with action and then she started talking.
Yeah, absolutely, right? She's judging at that moment that nobody wants to talk, right? So she's realizing, okay, he's acting, let me act now to appease him. So she's responding, right? She's very, very good at responding to what the situation requires at that moment, right? Which is a part of her wisdom, right? Absolutely. Very good. Okay, anything else? Any other question, objections?
There is another example where Jacob went to meet with Esau after years and years. The first thing he did, he sent lots and lots of gifts as well before even starting any conversation.
Yeah, this action, by the way, in the Hebrew Bible, of which I think Abenteng caught, the action of giving food, giving of your bounty, right? She mentioned Abenteng that it was a form of sacrifice, right? And I think this is very profound because what is happening when you're giving all of this, what you are saying is that I am welcoming you in my space, right? This is the only way, right, that you can in a way create this welcoming space. I give you gifts, I put myself back, I take from myself, right? I lose so that you can have a space to be with me, right? Anytime you give something to someone, you're saying to them, I'm sharing the world with you. I'm not taking everything for myself, right? I'm sharing the world with you. I'm making myself less so that you can be more. This is what is happening in both Jacob and Abigail. I'm making myself less so that you can be more. I am welcoming you in this space. Now let us sit down and talk, right? So the action is an action of hospitality. Right? The same way that Nabal expulses David, pushes him out, Abigail is saying, I am welcoming you. Here, welcome, sit down, relax. Now let's talk, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, this maybe it is not in the Bible, but in our daily life or in the reality sometimes, when you give somebody who is an enemy to you, sometimes these people, they don't consider that gift. Maybe they take that gift and they come and they finish you even. You see?
Yeah, yes. It's not easy. It's not easy, right? Absolutely. Yes. It's almost something that has to be done over and over again sometimes, right? There is when Jesus says to Peter, you have to forgive 70 times, 7 times, right? He's implying that sometimes it's a process, right? It's not immediately that you're going to get results, right? In the story, we have immediate results, but usually in real life, right? The way that she's acting probably has to be repeated over a certain period of time before the other begins to shift, right? So yes, some people, when you come on the first time, it's going to be a disaster. But if you persist, right, in this attitude of, coming from a place of love, coming in vulnerability, and prophesying good, little by little, there will be a shift, right? Absolutely. So Shumko, you have something to add?
A long time ago, I read the book. I was autobiography, and I think it was Benjamin Franklin, but I'm not sure. And one of the things he advised in dealing with your enemies was this is the trick he used. He said you'd have to go to them with an and ask them for a favor or a request that they can't refuse. So in that sense, you're turning their mind, thinking they're above you because they are, you owe them something, but they can't refuse that. So you naturally opening them for communication. And this is one of the methods of starting to turn them from enemy.
Ah, you got cut off. Yeah, I think what she's saying is excellent response to what Yai said, right? When they don't accept a gift, certainly they will accept a request for a favor, right? By the way, Shumko, if you're listening, Jesus with the woman at the well, right? It's a very tension, right? She's a Samaritan, he's a Jew, they're not supposed to talk. So he has exactly the strategy you mentioned, right? He doesn't offer, he asks for a favor. And at that moment, something opens, right? So yeah, that would be a great, you can shift it, right? You can flip it from bearing gifts to being vulnerable, right? And asking for a favor or asking for help. This too will create, right? Will open the possibility. Shumko, that was great, in case you're listening. I know you lost your connection, but yeah, we finished what you said. Excellent. Okay. What I'm going to do now is a little more intimate work, which I will put you by twos. And I want you to, how many of you already know somebody that in the class that you trust? Anybody know in the class someone that they would share very close things with? If you don't, I will try and guess. Put you with someone that I feel you would be comfortable with.
Put me with Terrence Cole.
What? You want to be with Cole?
Put me with Cole.
Okay, yeah, right now is the moment to call it out. So Cole Peterson. Anybody else?
You're welcome, Cole.
Kolaria, who you want to be with?
Yeah, with Yasmina.
Who is Yasmina?
Adamovich.
Adamovich. Okay, good. Who else? How, you had someone in mind?
I got poached.
Oh, they betrayed you.
Yeah, maybe. Not intentionally.
Okay.
I mean, I'm fine with Sophia.
You want to be with Sophia? You can share private things with Sophia? It's okay? Okay, good. Apenteng, you know anyone? Shall I put you with another lady like Uwanesa?
Yeah.
Okay, Uwanesa. Let's see now. Shall we put the two Rwanda together? The two Rwandis together? Kayumba, Kigenza? Or you want someone else? Yai, Willis, Manson? Yes? Kigenza, who you want to be with?
I wanted to go with Willis.
Oh, Willis, all right. Kigenza and Willis, great. Manse, Yai, and who's left? Kayumba. I think I will put you together.
Do you want me to choose?
Sure, Kayumba, who you want to be with?
Okay, let me work with Sophia.
I don't think you have a choice anyways. There's only Manse and Yai left, and I will put you all together. Did I miss anyone? Did I miss anyone alone? Okay, great. Now, what I want you to do during this time, I want you to go over one relationship which is the most painful right now. So it can be something very private, right? It can be a spouse, it can be a child, it can be a boyfriend, girlfriend, someone you have a crush on. No, you're all older than that. You're pretty much all married, I think, right? But I want you to pinpoint that relationship which is the most, it's the closest to your heart, is the most painful. And I want you to go over what Abigail did and try to give yourself a strategy with the other person. And the other person, you can give feedback. You can preach to each other. I hate those psychology like group therapy where you have to shut up and listen. I want to talk, I have things to tell you. What?
Can we not do this?
You mean, you scared, right, Cole?
Because the person is the person.
Oh, no. Cole and Peterson, you're in a conflict?
Yeah, we're in a conflict.
This is great. I love it. Yeah. You have no choice. You have to do it now. You have to do it now. So you will go and try to go and create a strategy for yourself based on Abigail on how you're going to resolve that conflict. Peterson and Cole, you ready?
Yeah, as long as I'll bow down.
Okay. You can.
Dude, I need gifts.
Yes, you have to
prepare. Then it should be chill.
I love it. Okay.
I'll send you my address.
That's great. So I'm gonna put you there for a half hour because it's kind of hopefully you have a lot to say and talk about and like tell the story to the other person, tell them where you are, express the issue, and then tell them what you think your strategy is. The other person can give you feedback and then it's their turn, right? All right, so I'm gonna put you there for a half hour meaning that we will be back. I mean, I'll bring you back right around, after a half hour. Okay, so how many, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms, I think, again. Okay. There should be more. There's more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rooms. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, 6. Okay, create breakout rooms. Willis, you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. You talked about we look at a painful relationship. Is it a relationship which involves us, me?
Obviously, yes, obviously.
Okay.
Yes, it has to be. It's a painful relationship that you have to resolve now in a half hour. Kayumba Yai Man.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Does it have to be a painful one or something you think is not painful but can be better?
Bitter like negative?
I mean it's not that painful, but you think it will be better to the situation it is in right now.
So you want to deal with a relationship that's not as painful, but that you want to work on, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So I prefer painful, but ultimately you decide what you want to do here in this particular exercise. Yeah, I'm not going to check, All right.
Sorry, I have a quick question. Do we have to present after or no?
No. This is between you and the other person. That's why I picked a person you might be familiar with already.
Sophia, you will have to present.
This is confidential. I won't know anything about it. All right. I'm going to stop the recording for now.